I keep telling you guys that I'm going to be consistent, right? And usually this episode will come out on Monday, but I'm also moving right now, so I apologize for being a day late, but nonetheless, what is going on, everybody? It is always your host, your best friend, your confidant, your number one source, Neil Villapiano, and welcome to another edition of the Devil's State of Mind podcast, right here on the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as Sports Wire Radio, the best place to get everything you need to know about your New Jersey Devils. And first and foremost, I hope you are having a fantastic day wherever you're checking out this podcast episode. And thank you, as always, for taking time out of your day to check these episodes out. You guys know that I greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate it. Also, wanted to quickly just mention that I saw earlier this morning that the Devil's State of Mind podcast is one of the top 5 most listened to New Jersey Devils podcasts out there. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much for your support. I know I say it every episode, but really, I value it so much because you guys are the reason that I continue to do this. Because as I always say, this podcast is for the fans by a fan. That's how I go about it. And I also can't tell you enough how excited I am for next season because I have so much planned of new content, and I'll break it down later on when we get closer to the season. But I'm really, really excited about it. And again, thank you to everybody for your support. It means the world to me. Quickly shout out both of our sponsors down below. Of course, we got our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook, and we are in a perfect time right now, sports fans, aren't we? We got the Stanley Cup playoffs starting tomorrow. Rematch of last year's finals between the Edmonton Oilers and Florida Panthers. And the NBA Finals, a very unique one. I know for maybe a lot of you who live in the New Jersey area. And if you're a Knicks fan, I do apologize. I'm a Nets fan. Just, you didn't need to know that, but I just felt like saying it anyway. Nonetheless, we have a really exciting NBA Finals with the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. That should be really fun. I think that starts on Thursday of this week, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, with Major League Baseball going on right now, the Roland Garros, the tennis tournament going on currently over in France. So much to get through. And you already know the DraftKings Sportsbook is your number one place to get in on these huge money prizes. And all you have to do to get in on it, sign up with DraftKings Sportsbook, use our promo code down below, THPN. You bet $5 and you get $200 instantly in risk-free bets. Guys, it's $200 of free money that you can use to place any bets you want. So I highly recommend you do that. And this is the perfect time to get on it. So again, go to DraftKings, use our promo code THPN, bet $5, get $200 instantly in risk-free bets. And as always, Devils fans, make sure to bet responsibly. And also shout out to our friends over at Tom's River Brewing, the home of Stick Toss, and also many, many more awesome beers, but in particular with Raise Hell as well, lager. It is the perfect beer for the Devils fan in your life, or obviously for yourself. I highly recommend it. You can go check out Tom's River Brewing, and if you're there, make sure to tell them that Neil Villapiano of Devil's State of Mind sent you. And also check it out. If you go on their website, you can check out wherever they are selling both Stick Toss and Raise Hell lager. I highly, highly, highly recommend doing it. I don't have one on me today, unfortunately, so I'm not going to drink in front of you guys today, unfortunately. But nonetheless, just wanted to shout them out as well and shout out both of our sponsors. 4 minutes into this episode, but here we are. So, Devils fans, I have a very special guest joining me on this episode. I very much really enjoy her work over at the Hockey Writer. She does a fantastic job. She's also a very impressive singer, if I do say so myself. And I'm really excited to have her on. It is with great pleasure that we welcome on Miss Donnah Campbell. Donnah, welcome to the
Hi,
Devil's State of Mind podcast. First and foremost, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
Doing very well. And as I mentioned before on social media, just very excited to get into this episode, get to know you a little bit more, as well as my listeners slash viewers. If you happen to be here on YouTube, which if you haven't already, please go and subscribe. Really would help me out tremendously. But yeah, just really, really looking forward to this. So I want to start with a little bit more. I like doing this for a lot of the people I have on here, especially with Devils related. My first question to you is this: how did you become a fan of hockey, and more specifically of the New Jersey Devils?
That's actually a really funny story. So, growing up, my dad watched hockey, but he was a Flyers fan. So,
Oh,
I know.
the
So
worst.
yeah, so I came home from school one day and I had all the Devils memorabilia. I'm hanging stuff up, and he's like, "Oh my God, where did I go wrong? And I didn't understand because I'm in South Jersey where everyone's like, "Oh, this is Flyers territory. This is Flyers territory." So
Yep.
I was really breaking the mold to be a Devils fan. So it's been a long road, but I'm here now.
Fair.
That's all that matters.
I love that. I love that. And I used to work in South Jersey for a couple years, Cherry Hill to be exact. So like I get it. I get like I feel like once you get to like beyond Tom's River is where you start entering into Flyers territory. And also like in terms of like television wise, that's what you're going to end up getting like NBC Philadelphia and channels like that. But obviously, the further north you get, the more likely you'll end up with Devils coverage and meeting Devils fans. Also, unfortunately, Ranger and Islander fans. But hey, beggars can't be choosers. That's the way I look at it.
Exactly.
But nonetheless, that's really really awesome. My next question to you is, what is your all-time favorite New Jersey Devils memory and why?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to think about that. I would have to say Nico Hischier's first hat trick. I think that was such
Oh,
a special moment
very
for me to
recent
watch.
too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I just think, we have a captain that works so hard. Nobody deserves it more than he does. And just being able to watch that and experience that as a fan, I think it's great. Definitely another top moment would be when they qualified for the playoffs, not the year before, but in 2023.
Got you.
That was
That was
fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, that was a really exciting time, and it's so fascinating because there's so many newer generation Devils fans who, unfortunately, since like 2012 or 2014, when a lot of them started to watch, they haven't really had a lot of chances to have success watching this team. And I get it. It's been tough, but you look at the last 3 years, you've made the playoffs 2 of the last 3, so there's been a bit more consistency, but we'll get into a lot more looking at the offseason, looking ahead towards what the Devils really need to do in order to be a lot better going into next year. So, both of those are great. I was actually at the game that Nico Hischier got the hat trick, so that was a lot of fun. Didn't even
Awesome.
realize that it was his first. And it's kind of weird to say that because he's been around since like 2017,
I know,
18.
it didn't feel like it.
And I'm like, it took you over half a decade to get a hat trick. Like I know he's not a big scorer, but at the same time, it's like you would have thought at one point or another he would have gotten it. But I think also I think that was against the Predators, if my memory serves me well, and that was
Yes.
when we finally broke our losing streak at home to Nashville. I remember that. I remember feeling so relieved when that finally ended because I was like,
Yeah.
I am tired of losing to this
Another
Predators.
way to make that night more magical, I agree.
Exactly. Exactly. My next question to you is kind of more on a career basis. When did you start working for the hockey writers and writing for them, and then, like what attracted you to wanting to write for them and cover the New Jersey Devils in that way?
Yeah, so I was actually in my last semester of college and I really bonded with my journalism professor. And I always knew that hockey, it was a sport that I was passionate about. And there was a few opportunities to intern at various podcasts and things like that. And he encouraged me. He said, if that's what you want to do, then go out and do it. So up until last year's Stanley Cup playoffs, that's what I was doing,
Mhm.
writing, graphics, things like that. And then a little over a year ago, I joined THW, and it's just been fantastic just getting to write about something that you love so much and having
Mhm.
people actually care enough to read your work and collaborate with you, even what we're doing now. It's really special, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Yeah, and shout out THW. I wrote for them for about a year. Shout out Kyle Geip, really, really awesome guy. Shout
Fantastic
out
team.
people like Daniel Moya, who just continues to be fantastic in his coverage. Although he and I, for some reason, recently been writing the same article just for two different websites, which has been really funny. We actually had a funny conversation about that on Twitter not too long ago. But shout out to him and shout out to everybody who writes for THW, not just with the Devils, but for every team in the NHL. And also the podcast as well is fantastic. The whole thing, whole setup there is tremendous, and I'm very happy that they continue to grow and they have people like yourself who do such a fantastic job. So I want to give you credit there. My last
Yep.
thing before we jump in, I promise you we will get to talking about the off season. Is I mentioned that you are a very talented singer. Can you give my viewers, listeners, a little bit more background into like your passion of singing and why you care about it so much?
Absolutely. So my degree is actually music industry. I minored in business and entrepreneurship. So growing up, I was constantly around music. My mom had a band, so that's always been another great passion of mine. I work around the tri-state area. I love doing the national anthem at sporting events, just working around. So it's kind of like living a double life almost, where if I'm saying, "Oh, hi, my name is Donna Lisa," then that's what I'm singing. And if I'm just, "Oh, like I'm Donna Campbell, I write for THW." So it's two different, you know what I mean?
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Do you have any sort of hope that maybe one day you could sing the national anthem at the Rock for a game?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to do that. Are you kidding me? That's
You want to take our lead job? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. No, no,
Yeah,
never.
yeah,
I'm not Arlette, but
no.
yeah, definitely on my bucket list of things to do, hopefully in this
Absolutely
life.
love that. Well, I will do my best to help push that and give and hopefully you get that opportunity because that's awesome. And again, you
Thank
do a
you.
you're fantastic, and I highly recommend it. If you haven't yet, go check out things that she's done because she's tremendous. She has a wonderful voice, and yeah, no, it's awesome. And I just wanted to mention that because I like to give people a little bit of chance to let my viewers and listeners know about you a little more personally instead of just the basic like, oh, you're a writer and this is how it goes, how it always goes. So awesome, awesome, awesome. So now that people have got a chance to know you a little bit more, let's dive into the bulk of what we wanted to talk about today, and that's talking about the Devils off season. Now, for for everybody who's listening and checking it out, you guys already know I did an off season outlook a couple weeks ago. You know how I feel about what needs to get done. I didn't give you guys specifically what I wanted to see. I've kind of dabbled in that a little bit through pucks and pitchforks and different things like that. But I wanted to get someone else's perspective because there's a million of them out there. And I know that there's a lot of consensus with a lot of different things. Really quickly, though, I just saw earlier today that in one, I think it was Frank Saravalli's trade list, people that are in the trade, who could be potentially traded based off of things that Frank Saravalli's hearing. Eric Hall is on there, which isn't a surprise because I think that that's somebody that I think will very likely be moved at some point.
I
But then
agree.
Dawson Mercer is also on there, and it's really interesting because Dawson Mercer has been one of the most consistent in terms of being available to play. He still hasn't, knock on wood, missed a game in his career since he got into the NHL. And obviously, he had a down year, but even in a down year, he still almost finished with 20 goals. Like it, he's a two way forward that can be both a center and a wing. And I think people were just frustrated that he couldn't jump into that top six role and be there consistently. So, Donna, what are your thoughts about Dawson Mercer? Do you think that it's valid for him to be potentially traded away, or do you think that it's an overreaction by a lot of people in terms of what they see from his performances?
I would say personally, I think it's an overreaction. The team has showed, even the organization in the past, they're kind of all in on Dawson Mercer. And in spite of the injuries and everything that the Devils suffered from this past season, having someone there that's able to play night after night, even if he's not putting up a 20 goal season, it's still invaluable in a way. So I think even if they shift him more into a bottom six role, that could perhaps work. It's obviously one of the Devils' biggest needs right now, but I think they would definitely be able to find a way for him to fit. I don't think he'll be traded, honestly.
I always look at it like there's always the possibility. I mean, the classic saying goes, if Wayne Gretzky can get traded, then basically anybody can get dealt. So it's more of a matter of very it's more of really just for me, it's like a wait and see approach because I think Tom Fitzgerald should be on the hot seat this offseason, considering that this team had high expectations. The season started off really well, but in reality, in my opinion, I feel like that they mirrored a lot of problems that should have been solved with the offense last offseason, but now he goes into it where it's so weird because he started when he first started as the GM, we focused on fixing the defense. Then once we got to that point, we had to fix the goaltending. And now we did that, and now we have to go to the offense, something that we never thought that we would have to like really figure out. But now we got to kind of revamp that entire offense essentially, and especially the bottom six. So, we'll see. We'll see. It depends on the play. I always have the attitude of it depends on what you're getting. I don't want draft picks or young players if we're trading Mercer because there's literally no point in doing that, especially with the team being where they are right now. So,
Absolutely.
lot of different rumors out there. What's interesting though is that the Devils are not really rumored to be in on anybody, which is actually, I don't know if you agreed on it. It's actually kind of a good thing because I'd like for Fitz for once to just keep things quiet and work behind the scenes so that we're not like assuming things that are going on. Is there anybody either via free agency or trade that's at the top of your list that you would want to see the Devils go after in one degree or another?
There's a couple. I think right now at the top of my list would be Ryan Donato. I think he would be a great fit in that bottom six, potentially third line center. He would be fantastic with depth scoring coming off of a 30 goal season on the power play. I think it would be a good fit. Or Suter from the Canucks. Those are my top two that I'm going all in for.
I've been a fan of PS Suter for a while, for a couple of years, and even this year, I wanted the Devils to try to make a move to acquire him via trade. It's going to be interesting with him because he's coming off of a year where he was only making about $1 million, and he's probably going to end up getting a pay raise of 3, maybe 4 million, and I don't know, and I wonder if that's going to be out of the Devils' price range, but we'll see. And Ryan Donato is another interesting one because the Devils clearly were interested in getting him at the trade deadline. But when the Blackhawks started asking for a first round pick for Ryan Donato on a walk year, I was like, no, like we are absolutely
Yeah. It
gonna
gets
get
to a
fleeced,
point.
right? Especially with what we already knew about Jack Hughes and where he was at last season at that point, and you know, for a lack of a better term, honestly, Fitzgerald kind of punted a lot of the trade deadline because he was basically like, we don't have Jack Hughes, so we're not going to have as much success, which I think is an indictment on him because of the fact that you've built the team to basically be like, if Jack Hughes isn't playing, we're screwed kind of thing. Although I will give Nico Hischier, Brat, Timo, guys like that credit for stepping up during that time, even in the playoffs, of just trying to get this team to at least still be fairly competitive without their superstar center in the lineup. But those are two really, really interesting names because what is so easy for all of us to say is, well, the Devils should go big game hunting with, top six forward, because I think that that's something else that needs to be addressed. And so it'll be really interesting to see how that goes. Um, I know that the two names that stand out the most are obviously Mitch Marner from Toronto and Nikolai Ehlers. Are you interested in either one of those players, or do you think the Devils should stay very far away from either one of those via free agency?
I mean, everybody would love to have Marner. It's kind of obvious, but
Personally, I
I
wouldn't want him, but I get it. I get the
yeah, I could see the
fascination.
appeal, but I think if you're trying to go big game hunting and kind of shake up your top 6, you're kind of losing the point because once you have a fully healthy Jack Hughes, it's kind of locked up. You need to
Sure.
focus on the depth scoring mainly because as long as you have players that take the pressure off of the top line to score, then I think the Devils will be fine. And as long as Fitzgerald can do what he did last offseason, just addressing their needs and being able to come back stronger in October, I think they'll be in a great place by then. So they definitely don't need any big names for their top 6 group.
It's all about really just finding somebody that has a nose for the goal. I've often said this numerous times that, and I know that some people might think it sounds ridiculous, but it's true that like Tyler Toffoli is probably the best goal scorer that Jack Hughes has ever played with in his career. And I know that Taylor Hall was obviously on the team in his rookie year, but like Tyler Toffoli had a nose for the goal. He ended up with 30 plus goals on the year. And granted, he got traded to Winnipeg, but I just it was kind of one of those things where Fitzgerald really should have just given him what he wanted, and it would have been okay. Because then the top six would have not been an issue. We wouldn't be talking about this discussion because we would know who our players are. Now, a couple of names also from James Nichols of New Jersey Hockey Now. He kind of brought this up. A couple names that stand out that could be available via trade, or somebody like Drake Batherson from Ottawa. I forgot who else he mentioned off the top of my head, but it was really kind of an interesting thing that like there are names out there that could be available for trade. And I think that's kind of the interesting thing, is that that's a route that we don't really know who becomes available, how it gets done, things like that. We could get a major, major surprise. So, we'll see. So, my question to you then, Donna, is this: what is your as I wrote on the title of this episode, what does your ideal Devils off season look like for people to like understand better?
I think they just need third, fourth line center to really just have a solid goal scorer that they can rely on. I think that would be fantastic. Maybe drafting someone else who could help later on down the line. I know they have a couple second round picks. I did a little write up on Adam Benak. I think he would be fantastic and fit into their of the Youngstown Phantoms. I think he would be good. But I also think they need to address that the fact that they're veteran players, they were better when the team was younger and kind of developing their identity, but now it sort of doesn't fit. Players like Curtis Lazar, Eric Holla, even Andre Palat. I
Mm,
think sometimes it's better to move on and kind of
yeah.
just I think by the time October rolls around, they should just embrace their younger players, lock down the top 6, and just fix the 3rd and 4th lines, basically.
It's funny you brought up Andre Palat because that was actually going to be one of my questions for you because I know that a lot of people have discussed in many ways why Andre Palat needs to be bought out or moved. More, my question more for you, Don, is this: do you expect the Devils to move Palat, or do you expect them to keep him around going into next season?
I would like for them to I would like to Ken Plot, but I think they will keep him around next season only because of the role that he's had, as an alternate captain. I personally think Brat should get an A, but that's just my personal opinion. But I do think they will keep him around for at least another season, kind of just to give themselves with a fully healthy roster and see how far they can go. And if not, address it in next offseason.
Yeah, I mean it's very obvious that the Palat contract for the most part has not worked out. I mean, I had often said that the move was made simply because we didn't sign the late Johnny Gaudreau. That was simply why that happened because he was Plan B from the start. He was never going to be like the main guy that we would go after, and you were paying the Stanley Cup tax. You're paying a guy that's been to the finals 4 times, won 2 Stanley Cups. Like, that's what we were getting for. And even in his first year, he was hurt a lot. But in the playoffs, he definitely did step up. He did have moments where he really, really did what needed to be done. So I give him credit for that. But yeah, like you look at last year being in the top 6, he just isn't the same player that he once was. He's getting up there in age, and it's harder for guys to be that way. I don't mind it being on that bottom 6 role, but at $6 million a year for the next 2 years is very hard.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll keep our eye on that. That'll be a name. Eric Hall is going to be another one. Lazar, I don't expect him to be back, but you never know. Bastion, preferably, I would not like to come back because I don't think that he really brings a whole lot at this point of his career. So yeah, a lot of bottom 6 work needs to be done. I was hoping that Yanni Gord was going to be available, but unfortunately the Lightning did sign him yesterday to a 6-year deal at like I think only like $1.5 million per year, like one of the cheapest long-term deals I've ever seen. And
Yeah.
it's just Tampa continuing to be Tampa, which good for them. Honestly, I give Brisbois a lot of credit for the job that he's done with that team, but it'll be really fascinating to see how this goes because I think that there's no specific way that they can go about this. I think you can go a multitude of ways and ways that we're not even thinking about, right? We could be acquiring somebody that wasn't even on the radar until the deal actually happens, kind of moves. So I think it's fair to say, and I want to get your thoughts on it, that I think Tom Fitzgerald has been a solid GM. I think there's times where he's done a lot of good, but I also think that there's a lot of times where he's been very hesitant to make those kind of shocking moves that really shake up the core, like what you've seen in Florida the last couple of years, to really take them over the hump. What are your overall thoughts about uh, Tom Fitzgerald, as a whole and what he's done?
I think Fitzgerald's done a solid all around good job as GM. Sometimes a little gun shy, especially around the trade deadline, hesitant to, as you said, make those big moves for kind of short term success. But I think he's done a phenomenal job. I mean, Jacob Markstrom, I think, is his best move in in a while. I also think Brian Dumoulin was an unexpected surprise. I would definitely re-sign him. I think he was a welcome, surprise. I like that. So, but no, I think he's done a fantastic job so far, and I think that he's going to take the team far. Hopefully, after this offseason, make the right moves.
It's gonna Brian Dumoulin's so interesting because we know that Jonathan Kovacevic will not be ready come training camp, so we don't know when exactly he'll be back. And I think the Devils, especially for what they gave up to acquire Brian Dumoulin, I think that they will make an attempt to keep him around. He's also a guy that's won multiple Stanley Cups. And look, in the last 2, 3 games of the Stanley Cup playoffs for us, he was an absolute warrior, playing 40 plus minutes and just, you know, never, I'm sure he did not expect to do that. But with the amount of injuries we had on the back end, he had to step up, and he stepped up really well. And Sheldon Keefe was very, 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 you know, complimentary of Dumoulin's play overall.
Yes,
So it's really kind of, I'm sure he'll be pretty. I'm sure he'll probably want to get a raise from what he was making in Anaheim, especially with the way he played in New Jersey. So that'll be another guy to keep our eye on. And then you have the two young defensemen in Seamus Casey and Shimon Nemec. Do you expect either one of them to potentially get moved in a deal for somebody this offseason? Or do you think that that has changed over the last couple of weeks, maybe the last month, um, more or less?
initially, I thought it was possible, definitely before the playoffs, but after Nemec's performance, and I think he really redeemed himself in the playoffs. So I don't really see either of them being moved potentially. You can kind of use them as kind of dangle in front of other teams. And potentially, if you really wanted someone and
Yeah.
wanted to land, I could see them moving, but probably not by choice. I think they would keep both around for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And that's kind of something that, like, again, just like with Mercer, it would have to be something pretty like, attractive for me to even like play ball
Pretty
with a deal
special.
like that. So we'll see. I mean, people have asked me if I had to choose between one of them, I would probably move towards Nemec because I think that he's just proven himself. I know he had a tough year, but he was playing hurt basically the whole year, but he held his own really well in the playoffs, and that gives me a lot of confidence with him moving forward. It's not that I don't feel confident in Sheamus, it's also that he's more of an offensive defenseman,
We already
and
have
he's
that.
also 5'9", and that doesn't really. I know that Quinn Hughes. Everybody likes to point it out to me. I know that Quinn Hughes is also pretty small for being a defenseman, and he's one of the best in the league. But not everybody who's 5'9" is going to be a superstar defenseman. I'm just going to be blunt. Like I try to tell people that, like, I know people like Seamus Casey, but I'm also trying to be fair about
Yeah,
what is best for the team and moving forward. But we'll see. Again, I'm kind of in the boat with you that at this point I don't think either one of them get moved, but you never know. You never know
yeah.
with anybody. So it'll be really interesting with that. And then lastly here, well, second to last, the two prospects ish that the Devils signed this offseason so far with Lenny Haminaho and then Arseny Griciak, who I've been over the moon hyped for the last couple of years. What do you expect out of Griciak? Because there was an article that came out earlier this week that he was talking very confidently as a 27-year-old kid about he feels very confident about coming into the NHL and making an impact right away. Really excited to potentially play with Jack Hughes next year, and explaining why he went the route that he did with, staying in the KHL for a couple of years and then coming over to play in the NHL. Like, what are your overall thoughts about Griciak and what he could potentially bring to this team next year?
I think he definitely has star power and he could absolutely help the team. Learning from the best like Jack Hughes, I think he could definitely benefit from it. But I think no, I think they should give him a chance and let him play and let things work out. I mean, it worked out fantastic for Seamus Casey in Prague, so I think I think they should give him a shot.
I think there's a very good chance, not a chance. I think there's very likely that we will see Arseny Griciak in New Jersey next year. Otherwise, I don't see the point of him coming over if he didn't think he could make the team. And
I
if
agree.
he's the guy that ends up being that top six forward that we're looking for, we just saved a lot of money this offseason to do other things with, which is like re-signing Luke Hughes, which I don't know if you've seen this, Donna, but the amount of people that just don't read like anything and just simply say, oh, let's just offer sheet Luke Hughes because he's an RFA, not realizing that he actually can't because he's a 10.2 player, hasn't played 3 full seasons in the NHL. So he's not getting the only team that he can sign with is New Jersey. So that's kind of the luxury with it. So with that in mind, what kind of contract do you expect him to sign? Do you think it'll be a long-term 7, 8 year deal, or do you think they'll do more of like what they did with Mercer, where it's like a 3, 4 year deal instead?
I think they'll lock him down to a long-term deal, to be honest with you. I think he's been fantastic so far, definitely emerging as one of their core defensemen. He's been phenomenal with Brett Pesci. I think don't if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
It ain't broke, don't fix it. Exactly. I think that's a perfect way to look at it. And lastly, here, you look at obviously Sheldon Keefe finishing his first year in New Jersey. Devils already have a new assistant coach, Brad Shaw, which I talked about in an article recently for Pucks and Pitchforks, and I've talked about here on the podcast. Um, my main question to you is overall, what are your thoughts about Sheldon Keefe now that he's had a full year of coaching this Devils team after coming over from Toronto?
I think Keith has been wonderful. It's exactly what the Devils needed to not give up when times get tough and just keep moving, keep going. I think he's kind of switched around his methods early in the season before Christmas. They were more focused on defense, limiting shots, dominating the neutral zone, and then him being able to adjust after the holiday break. And that's kind of the final push that got them into the playoffs. Even though it was difficult, I have to give him credit. He never gave up on the team, even in round one. Early exit is not what you want from your team, but I
No.
think we should be proud of the team and everything that Sheldon Keefe has done so far in New Jersey.
And I think him having the courage to say things like essentially calling out the GM for like, look, this is the players that we have right now, and it's that you can only teach them so much or coach them so much, and like some guys just can't do it. Basically saying to Fitzgerald, like, this team is not as good as you may think it is, and we need better players. We need better everything. And he talked about having championship habits, which is something that we never really had from listening to Lindy Ruff or even John Hines before that kind of thing. It's kind of refreshing to have somebody that has faltered a lot in the playoffs in his own career, but is a guy that understands and is learning as well, like what needs to be done for this team to move forward. So it's really going to be interesting to see how what he's learned from year one and what he can do going into year two now that he's kind of gotten acclimated with a lot of the guys that we have. And currently, thanks to our friends over at DraftKings, the Devils are currently have the ninth highest odds to win the Stanley Cup next year. And this is before any moves that are going to be made. So it's kind of interesting how the betters and the books feel about this Devils team. Again, if they can all stay healthy and we can have some consistency. But Donna, this has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and get your opinion on a lot of things. But before I let you go, because I like to do this with all my guests, I like to, as they say, roll out the red carpet and allow you to let the folks at home here find out where they can check out your work and anything else you got going on. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, thank you so much. So on Twitter, you can find me at Donna_13. That's DONNAH. I'm also on Instagram, LinkedIn, everything. My music's on Spotify. I know we mentioned that earlier. That's under Donna Lisa. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciated it.
Of course, and we will definitely have you back on the podcast down the road. But again,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much today. And thank you to everybody for checking out this episode. As always, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't here on YouTube. Also, follow the socials in the top right corner of your screen. Devil State of Mind, both on Facebook and Instagram, and Devil State over on Twitter. Almost at 3,000 followers over on Twitter. So if you haven't yet, please go do that. Would help out a lot. And make sure to always, also follow Donna as well. I will leave her socials in the comment section down in the description of this video. And I will tag her in wherever I share the podcast episode as well. But again, Donna, thank you so much, and we really,
Thank
really do
you.
appreciate the time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Neil. I appreciate it. Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, and we'll definitely have to do this again for sure. But thank you,
Absolutely.
everybody, again, and we will see you in the next episode. Everybody, continue to be the awesome people that you are. And as I always say at the end of every episode, let's go, Devils.